everybody, welcome into Mining Stock Daily. This is going to be an interesting corporate update with Barksdale Resources and CEO Mr. Rick Trotman. They trade on the Venture Exchange with BRO and also on the OTCQX with BRKCF. Rick, welcome back to the podcast. This is, I don't know, in 5 years of doing this thing, I don't know if I've actually had to go through a lawsuit affidavit before and actually have it be the basis of a corporate update. Unfortunately, we have to, but I'm glad we could do it. I'm glad
Lucky you. I'm glad I'm your first.
Yeah. Woo. Stay with us. Okay, so I know a lot of people have been following the story. You've been on this podcast a number of times all throughout the year. Talking about the imminent drill permits for your Sunnyside project in Arizona. Everything's going great. You are working with the Forest Service. Obviously, that provides a complex path. You are on the verge of getting those permits, and then all of a sudden, the judicial system comes in, and I guess, for lack of better terms, the Forest Service is in you're getting sued. It's getting sued, and they're fighting against this.
Yeah. So let me clarify a bit. So we're not getting sued.
Okay.
The Forest
Thank
Service,
you.
Yeah, the Forest Service is getting sued. So there's a group of environmentalists that are challenging the decisions that the Forest Service has put forward. So, as you mentioned, we've received a couple of different key items, kind of permitting milestones over the past couple of months. Our EA, our environmental assessment, was approved. Our finding of no significant impact was issued, and our decision notice was issued. So these are kind of the big enchiladas, so to speak. When it comes to permitting, we've been going through permitting for a number of years. And so this environmental group is challenging the Forest Service on the issuance of those permits. And so what we have done is we've signed on to be an intervener. And what that means is that we're basically, because we have something at stake here, we are attaching ourselves to this litigation for the purposes of helping the Forest Service lawyers, the Department of Justice lawyers that are representing the Forest Service with everything going forward. So we want to make sure that we have, our best interests at heart, and that we help them as much as we can take care of this. And to that end, we have some of the most top-notch NEPA lawyers in the country that are working for us out of Phoenix. And NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act. So that's where we currently sit.
Okay. And I have this lawsuit in front of me, this complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief, I guess I could say. That's what it does says. And we're working in a can of this industry and worms, a judicial system that I'm probably not qualified to provide context to. So I'm just going to read straight from it here. If everybody bear with me, Rick. The group is concerned with the Endangered Species Act that this area contains nesting and foraging sites for the threatened Mexican spotted owl and western yellow-billed cuckoo, and they present a key movement corridor for the endangered jaguars and ocelots that increasingly have been moving northward from Mexico to this area of the Patagonia Mountains in Arizona. Rick, I know through this permitting process, you've had to do a lot of environmental studies. What do you know about jaguars, ocelots, and yellow-billed cuckoos?
Cuckoos.
Yeah,
way too much, quite honestly. So look, the cat species, they roam far and wide, and the Patagonias are one of the areas that they roam. They come up from Mexico. They kind of wander about is the wrong word. They have kind of territory in which they move through, and from time to time they go through the Patagonias. So look, they're not a key concern of ours. The work that we will be doing there with respect to drilling, it's not going to impact them. And in fact, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has gone through and completed a biological assessment with respect to all of these species, as well as a couple of species of plants that are, sensitive and are in this area as well, and amphibians and a couple of other things. And for the most part, these species aren't really going to be impacted by our project, and hence, they were of little concern to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and then the U.S. Forest Service. The ones that are of concern are the yellow-billed cuckoo and the Mexican spotted owl, as you said. And those birds are ones that we have studied for several years. And others in the area, other mining companies, as well as the Forest Service itself, have studied those specific birds and in complete detail. They have, probably at least a decade of information related to these birds and studies. The populations of the Mexican spotted owls are doing just fine, if not going up over time. So we have no worries or concerns that we're going to cause irreparable damage. In fact, during their breeding seasons, we're going to be staying outside of their kind of breeding area where they have their nests. We've put forth a 1/4-mile buffer area where we won't work during the breeding season. So we've taken all of this into account. This is all part of, what other projects and what other proponents have done at many other sites around the desert Southwest that have these types of species. So there's nothing new here.
This document also says, according to the plaintiffs, the Sunnyside Project calls for development for as many as 30 new well pads with industrial machinery running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in this part of the Patagonia Mountains. Rick, is that true? 24/7?
Yeah, well, they're not well pads, they're drill pads, but
drill pads.
Aside from the nomenclature, look, we're looking to do up to 30 drill pads. As you know, we're doing some deep drilling, and so we can have a drill rig sitting on one of these pads for quite some time. So if we actually get 30 drill pads in there, I'd be surprised. But we do have the ability to drill for 7 years, 24 hours a day. With diamond core, you don't want to drill less than 24 hours a day because you'll get your rod stuck. And that will cause way more problems than the potential issues that they're raising about noise and things like that.
Sure.
With drilling, during daylight hours, for instance. So again, we've looked at alternatives to all of what we've put forth, and our plan is the best plan, and that's why the Forest Service has accepted it.
Okay. Tell me about your community outreach and your community support. Has it been challenging over the years? What can you tell me about the support from this document? The plaintiffs really are starting to, it makes it seem like there is lack of community support. I've been in this industry. I mean, I haven't had a long run in this industry, but I know enough, like a little bit of non-support actually goes a really long way. And so if you have any sort of pushback, it's just going to make things a lot more difficult. But it seems like the permitting process, through the administrative process for permitting was a lot more difficult than the community support for this project. Is that safe to say? What do you tell me about that social work?
I would say that this project is just like most other projects when it comes to exploration. You've got the 10% vocal minority that are against the project, and they don't want anything to happen. They're unwilling to negotiate. They're unwilling to provide input as to how to make it better. They just want you to go away. Then you've got the 10%, proponents that are hoorah for the project. And then you've got the bulk of people which are sitting in the middle that are kind of agnostic, and they want to wait and see how it affects them as far as the potential for jobs, the potential for impacts, and things of that nature. Once our environmental assessment went out and the details of our programs and the potential impacts went out, we haven't heard almost anything from the community other than these particular folks and the groups that they're associated with that have had any ill words towards what we're planning to do or going to execute upon. So we've got an office in the town of Patagonia. We have a community liaison that has office hours there multiple times per week. And, our door is always open to answer questions from folks in the community. We're always out and about in the community. So we have a strong presence there. And from what we see, most of the people around there are very happy to see us get to work.
I'm going to do a little bit of editorializing here, Rick. just
sure.
so bear with me. And then you're happy to respond if you like. You don't feel like you need
sure.
to.
Go for it.
This lawsuit, I was not surprised. The only thing that really surprised me, that took me back, was the timing of it all. Because it was very 11th hour, 45 minute. Like, it just seemed like the very last minute. You're set to get those permits and get to work. It just seemed like, of course, the very last second this hits the tape. I question the integrity just of this lawsuit based on the timing. I also go ahead. I've got more.
Well, yeah. So the timing of the lawsuit, they can't challenge the issuance of those key decisions until they've been made. And so the lawsuit, they had to wait effectively. So I can't give them any anguish about the timing of that lawsuit. The delay, the self-imposed delay that we've agreed to take, the voluntary delay, that is a bit trickier, because that comes about, from the environmentalists basically threatening the Forest Service to lodge a temporary restraining order. And that was because they were afraid the forest was going to finish our plan of operations and that we would start drilling before the environmentalists could have an injunction requests, kind of in front of a judge and ready for a decision. And so rather than, face the temporary restraining order, the Forest Service, ourselves, as well as, the guys next door with the other project, all agreed to a voluntary suspension of drilling until September. That gives an adequate timeline to get all the information in front of a judge. And at that point, she can make a decision as to, whether she'll grant or not grant the injunction request. And so the key difference between these two things being the temporary restraining order, that is a very low bar as far as what the plaintiffs have to prove and what the judge will accept regarding the granting of a restraining order. So it comes down to less science at the end of the day and more judgment. And with the injunction request, we actually submit evidence, the plaintiffs submit evidence, the judge has plenty of time to go through all of that evidence. And then ultimately there's a bit of a mini trial where, you go back and forth in the court, and then the judge makes a determination. And so that ruling effectively will come down before September 15th. So we have all of our contracts realigned for September 15th. Assuming that we get the positive decision that we expect, we'll start drilling as soon as we can thereafter.
Do you have a specific date for the trial?
Yeah, it's August 24th.
August 24th. Okay.
In kind of agreeing to this delay in drilling, we, in exchange for that, the plaintiffs basically agreed to expedite this filing, make sure that it all happened in an orderly fashion. So we have all of the dates lined up. The judge has already signed off on all the dates. So we know, when the documentation has to go back and forth from both sides, when the judge will hear the case in person, and then the no later than date with respect to the ruling, which is September 15th.
And the last thing I wanted to editorialize, Rick, and again, the last thing, this is what plaintiffs include Patagonia Area Resource Alliance, Arizona Mining Reform Coalition, Center for Biological Diversity, Earthworks, Friends of Santa Cruz River, Friends of Sonoita Creek, Save the Scenic Santa Ritas, and Tucson Audubon Society. Those are the plaintiffs. The attorneys for the plaintiffs are located in Montana, California, and Colorado. Nobody from Arizona. That just fucking drives me nuts. Sorry. I might have to beep that out. But it does. It's just okay, if a lot of the environmental organizations from Arizona are going to push this lawsuit could you at least have somebody representing you from Arizona? I know it's federal land, but it's just, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, look, the majority of these firms are just lawyer factories, right? These groups, they go out and they raise money from their constituents to fight the evil exploration companies, and then at the end of the day, they turn around and they ask the government to pay back all of their legal costs, right? And so this is how they make money at the end of the day. And look, it's an unfortunate part of the business, but we have to deal with them. It doesn't matter how. I don't want to say ill things about them, but it doesn't matter the facts of the case. They're just going to throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks, no matter what. If they can slow us down, if they can get us to spend extra money, if they can get our stock price to go down, it's all a big win for them at the end of the day. So we're taking this seriously. We're going to, kind of put our full shoulder into it and give the Forest Service a big push to make sure that we get the decision that we expect, on this injunction request. And ultimately, that'll be the writing on the wall for the entire case. So, assuming that we get the positive decision that we expect, the injunction is shot down, we can start drilling, and we can drill during the entirety of the rest of the trial, which should last 12 to 16 months, depending on, the speed of the courts and how busy the judge is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I know you well enough, Rick, and I know your team well enough that if there was a spotted owl on the side of the road with a bum wing, you would stop the car and you would go take care of it. So I know your heart's in the right spot.
Even if one of these environmentalists was on the side of the road with a bum wing, I'd help them out too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Rick. Thanks so much for the update. I mean, this was a different one, but I'm glad we got to chat about it. We're gonna probably touch base again next month. Probably pretty. I don't know what will happen in between then, but once this decision comes down, we'll have a better. We'll be clear. We'll know what's going on. So appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this. I know it's been challenging for you. All right, that's your update from Barksdale Resources. Everybody, again, trading on the Venture Exchange with BRO.